Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to this Kettle Valley presentation. We're doing this in lieu of a parent meeting, so we hope you find this valuable. Of course, if you have any questions, please email either Ms. Loger, Mr. Johnston, or myself at the addresses below, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. One notable change for this year is the dates. This year we'll be running the trip in June from the 19th to the 22nd. There's a lot of reasons for this that I won't get into now. The unfortunate trade-off for this is that anyone writing the English 12 exam will not be able to attend this trip, unfortunately. But hopefully that still leaves quite a number of interested students to join us in June for this fantastic trip. Okay, so where can you get information? Well, from this presentation. You can also get it from WolfNet by accessing your child's group page. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And of course, you can contact any one of us. So the first thing I want to do is take the myth out of this trip. What you see here is a downhill mountain biker. We will not be doing anything like this. We're on a cross-country trip. Most of that trip will involve twin track. That's a nice wide trail. It's usually well groomed and very little downhill, and the grade is usually no more than 2%, so it's very reasonable. We will also be riding on city roads when it comes to Penticton, but that's very brief. We try to limit that. So very manageable terrain for the average student of this age. They are long days, but from a terrain perspective, very manageable. The reality is that we'll be involved in all kinds of neat things, including bicycle maintenance, and this is really what our trip looks like. This is a typical trail on the Kettle Valley. This is one of the stops, and of course campfires. This is our campfire at Hydraulic Lake, which I'll show you a little bit more of later. So important dates. Well, the most important date is the departure date, June 19th. We'll meet, like most of our trips, just off 4th Avenue in the lower lot. We'll be meeting at 7:30. We would ask that your children bring a lunch or money for that day. We'll be stopping in Merritt for lunch. And then we'll be returning to the same lot on Thursday at 2 p.m. This is our route. So you can see here we have Kelowna, and West Kelowna and East Kelowna. And this is Okanagan Lake. And down here we have Skaha Lake, and this is where we'll start. It's a little area called Arlington Lakes. We'll be dropped off there by the support vehicles, and then we'll cycle in a northerly fashion towards Hydraulic Lake, which is location A. Stay overnight there, and then we'll get up the next morning and we'll cycle towards Myra Canyon, which is arguably the most beautiful part of the trip. And we'll have lunch near the end of the canyon there. And then we'll move on to Chute Lake that evening, which used to be an old whistle stop for the train. And then we'll go down through the switchback into and through Naramata into Penticton. We'll probably have lunch in Penticton. And then we will cycle onto Banbury Green on Skaha Lake, which is where we'll be staying our last night. So here's the itinerary. You can peruse it at your leisure. It will be here, and you can also find it in the materials online. Gear is an important thing to discuss. We will provide tents for students. We will provide all of the cooking gear, the stoves, the cleaning gear. We'll provide most bike tools. There are some kind of wonky tools that are specific to certain bikes. We hope that no student has any of those, but internal gear tools, for example, we can't deal with that. We will ask the students that they provide their own sleeping bag and pad, their own spare tube that fits their tire. They have to provide their own bike, and they have to provide their own helmet. And then, of course, I ask you both, you and your children, to check out the detailed gear list on WolfNet. We do provide some gear. We do have a limited number of sleeping bags. If your child is in need, we don't provide bikes or spare tubes or helmets. Food. This trip is unique in that students are asked to purchase, plan for, prepare, and cook their own food. So when they purchase food, if one person in their food group purchases the food, they're asked to share the costs of that amongst their group. The school doesn't get involved in this purchase. So we do check their menus. It's part of the planning process, and we talk about that in our meeting. As I say here at the bottom, meal plans need to be checked by us. And nutrition is key for this trip. Like I say, they are pretty long days, and you want to make sure your food fits the trip. So here's an example of our first stop. This is Hydraulic Lake, sometimes referred to as McCulloch Lake. McCulloch was the engineer. You can see that we have some pit toilets, and we do have campfire pits as well, which we may or may not be able to use in June, depends what Forest Services says. And then of course every site, they'll be putting up their tents on these grassy areas, and then we'll be cooking and eating on the picnic tables. And you'll also see a fantastic beach here. It'll probably be a little busier than these pictures identify that time of year, but it's a fantastic site. The beach is, you can swim in the lake. Usually it's very cold, so students won't. But I should let you know that none of us have lifeguard certification, and students are not able to swim or go in the water without supervision from one of the chaperones. But we want you to be aware of that. And this is our second night. This is Chute Lake. So Chute Lake, again, a similar camping situation right next to the lake with picnic tables. This also has a lodge, and there's a little dining hall in the bottom here where they can get some food. But we ask that they bring their own food here. They can buy pie afterwards or something like that if they want dessert. This site also has hot showers and flush toilets. And this is Banbury Green. Again, it's quite well kitted out. It's got flush toilets and it's got hot showers as well. And this site that you're looking at is pretty typical of the kind of this campsite we stay in. Facilities along the trail are quite limited, so I need you to know that. There aren't regular spaced out pit toilets, so your children need to be prepared to do their business off the trail. We'll discuss that in the meeting. There's a proper way to do this, and we'll go over that in the meeting as well. We just need you to know that. We do ask that they, and it's on the gear list, that they bring a Ziploc bag and hand sanitizer so they can adequately deal with their business. I've talked a little bit about this. Here's some of the things that we'll be doing. We'll be looking at a little bit of the history of the area. It's quite a rich history of the Kettle Valley. We're doing a little bit of bike maintenance as well. We'll have a little bit of time for journaling as well, and obviously we have lots of great views. We'll be doing a little bit of campcraft, setting up tents and food prep, things like that. We'll have lots of time for sitting around the fire and telling stories too. You can use this trip for the bronze level Duke of Ed, and if done carefully, you can also consider it for the silver, but please be careful and please plan carefully for the silver. So meeting and gear reminders, well, we will make the advertisement to students shortly in the Howl and in daily announcements. And then we just ask that students pack their own bags, because we need them to know what they've packed and we need them to know where it is. And we'd also encourage them to do their own shopping, because that's a valuable part of this particular experience. And it's a good thing to do before they head off to university. There are some risks, as there are risks on all of our trips. We have the usual transportation risks. Of course, we're out in the weather all day. We can experience some pretty stormy weather up there, so we keep our eyes on it. But we need to be prepared for all kinds of things because we are in the mountains. I've already talked a little bit about swimming, and a number of us are wilderness first aid certified, so we've dealt with all kinds of things from blisters to anaphylaxis. Dehydration is something we've seen on this particular trip, so staying hydrated is important. And we do have our share of wildlife here. There are bear in the area, there are cougar, although we've never seen any. There are plenty of mice, and at this time of year there'll be plenty of insects as well. Finally, if you want to know where to find this on WolfNet, what you'll need to do after your child signs up for the trip, we'll add them to a group. You can go into your child, go to their groups, and there it is. So here's a list of things we need you to do. Parents, we need to get you to fill out the usual forms. Students, we need you to do the rest of that. Everything from making the pre-trip meetings to packing your helmet. On that note, while your child's with us, we hope you enjoy it. Some quiet days at home without them. Thanks very much. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact any of us.